Hey folks, I'm going to do a 2024 recap of my travels and outdoor adventures and all the stuff. 2024 was a big year. I haven't tallied up how much money I spent, but I spent a lot of money. I'll tell you that. So I'm going to talk about the travels right fast. This is Mike Norris with Explore Outdoors with Mike. And if you're new to the channel, like the channel and subscribe, or like the video, subscribe to the channel. But last year at this time, like January the 14th through the 20th, I spent basically 6 days at Myrtle Beach. What did I do there? I took a bunch of pictures and videos of sunsets, sunrises. I walked on the beach, I ate a lot of seafood, and I planned my trips because in February, I took a trip on the California Zephyr, Amtrak. I flew from where I live in South Carolina to Chicago, boarded the train in Chicago, and rode the train all the way to Sacramento. It goes through the Rocky Mountains. The scenery was unbelievable. Had a problem with the train. Every time I've ever rode the Amtrak, there's always problems. We had to switch out a car in Denver, but that was fine because I was in no big hurry. The views were just crazy, and going through the tunnels, the mountains. Didn't see much wildlife, saw a few caribou, some deer. I think that was about it. No mountain goats, anything like that. I think it was too cold. Of course, bears were hibernating. But it was a great trip, and I got to Sacramento, and then I spent time in Sacramento with my daughter. Then I went to San Diego and spent time with my younger daughter and her children, and we took several little trips and went to see things, had a good time. Then I flew back to South Carolina. In March, we had the big flooding last year. A lot of people may not know that, but we had a lot of flooding in March last year in South Carolina, and so I spent some time. I have a trail that I hike along the river, and well, it flooded the trail, took pictures and videos of that. Then in middle of March, I went to Nashville, drove to Nashville to watch a basketball tournament, the SEC basketball tournament. And that was good, but the big thing was I had been to Nashville before. Of course, ate some really good food and stuff. But then I drove back and I went through the mountains. I went to Cades Cove, which was the first time I'd ever been to Cades Cove. A lot of historical stuff there. People go there and they see a lot of bears and stuff. I didn't see any bears. I did see a lot of deer. But I did some hikes at Cades Cove, spent some time hiking. There was a graveyard, and there were people who had fought in the Revolutionary War that were buried there. And being a history buff like I am, that was a big thing to me. I couldn't believe it. The first time I'd ever seen a tombstone with somebody and on a tombstone that he had fought in the Revolutionary War. I also did the Abrams Trail, Abrams Falls, the waterfall there, the Abrams Fall Trail. I hiked on that along the river. Really good trip. And what my plan was to go from there, I was going to travel down. I was going to go to Cherokee and stay at Cherokee, and I did, and I drove the parkway a little bit. But I went to Newfound Gap. After I left Cades Cove, I drove down to Newfound Gap. Unfortunately, Clingman's Dome, which is a place I've never been, and everybody talk about going and climbing Clingman's Dome and how great the views are, it was closed because it was March and the weather was bad, so it was closed. But down at Newfound Gap, I was going to do a quick hike because I knew where I wanted to go, and I didn't have a whole lot of time. I ran into a family from Michigan, a mother, father, and like 5 children from ages of like 12 to 21 or 22. And so I hiked with them for about 2 miles out until in a little part of the Cherokee Trail, and the Appalachian Trail. And I hiked a little part of the Appalachian Trail. It was really rocky at the part that we were at, but they were going to go on. They were hiking a little bit further, and I said, well, I got to get back to my vehicle. I got to drive on. So I hiked back by myself and maneuvered around the rocks and stuff. It was a really good time, great hike, and I definitely want to go back up in that area and hike some more. So I got in my car and I drove to Cherokee, got me a hotel in Cherokee, and did some hiking there the next few days. I did a trail hike along the the river, I can't pronounce, Lufty River. I don't know. I totally screwed that up. But I hiked along the river. I did some of the Mountain to the Sea Trail, not very much, just a few miles. I did that hike, spent some time at the casino at night, went to the casino mainly for the food. And I like this, they got a gigantic sports bar there that you can watch games. And then the next day, there was a waterfall or two that I wanted to go see. Yeah, I went to Soho Waterfall, which was very nice. And then I drove over to the Pinnacle Trail. This was a tough trail, and to be honest with you, it was about a 6-mile trail, and it started raining, and I actually messed my toe. I had some bruised toes. Let's put that. I had the wrong shoes on for that trail, and coming down was very steep and rocky. And I paid for that for a few months with some bruised up toes and feet, but that's all right. It was a lot of fun. Then from there, after I did that, the next day I drove the Blue Ridge Parkway, a part of the Blue Ridge Parkway. I drove on the other side of Asheville. I guess that would be the east of Asheville. I drove about 30, 40 miles of that. Which was beautiful, and said, told myself I want to come back later and drive more of the Blue Ridge Parkway. I drove home, and then in July, this was in April, then in July, when I got off the Blue Ridge Parkway in April, came home around April 19th, and then in July, I actually had a big trip planned. This was my big trip cross country to all the national parks and stuff, to a bunch of them. So I drove, first I drove out to California. I just drove to California to spend time again during the summer with my grandkids and my daughters. And I took 2 of my grandkids, and we were driving from San Diego up to Sacramento. And we went to the Sequoia National Monument and the Sequoia National Forest. I went the Trail of 100 Trees. There was a nice waterfall there. On down there was a nice waterfall, but those trees are unbelievable. But it was really hot. It was killing my grandkids. They were whining and crying. I wanted to do a little bit more hiking, but it was probably 102, 103 degrees. So we didn't. We drove on and eventually got to Sacramento at my oldest daughter's house, and they stayed there. And then my youngest daughter came up, spent July the 4th there. And then my big trip started on around July the 15th. I drove across Nevada, cut up to Oregon. I never knew Oregon had a desert. I drove through desert there for a couple hours, southern Oregon, got into Idaho, drove a lot along the Salmon River, got out and took some good videos, good pictures, and I was heading to Glacier National Park. And finally I got up to Glacier, and I went to the east side, not the west side, because at this time of the year, the middle of July, it's just so crowded. Super expensive to stay anywhere. Matter of fact, it's hard to find places. Being me, I waited till the last minute to try to find places, and I found a really nice place that has a restaurant. People come from all 30, 40 miles away to eat there because there's really nothing else there. A little town I can't pronounce, Dpuyer in Montana, and it was about a 40, 45-minute drive each day to Glacier National Park and then back to the place where I was staying. But it was a nice drive. It was fun. And I spent about 4 days at Glacier. I did a lot of stuff there, a lot of day hikes. Saw moose way off in the distance, not up close. I'll get to where I saw one close in just a second. A couple bears. But the big thing I did was, some super nice waterfalls I hiked to. I took the red car from going to the Sun Road. I took it from the west side, from the east side to the west side and back. Although there was a wreck coming back, we had to get off and go around the park, which was kind of disappointing because there were some things I wanted to take some video of on the way back, and so I didn't get it. But there's a trail in Glacier called a Highline Trail. and it's up there and it's on a cliff and it's got a cable against the wall you can hold on to. You know, you have 4 or 5 feet to go over the cliff, and if you went over that cliff, folks, it's over. and I was not going to do that. I was just going to hike up, take a look at it, and then hike back down. But I get up there and I said, because I'm not crazy about hiking, I said, let me go ahead and attempt this thing. And there were some other people that were behind me, and they got up there and we were talking. They were like, no, we're not going to do this. Also, I got a nice picture of mountain goat up there. And I got a lot of mountain goats on another trail there at Glacier, and I've got all of those videos of those are up. And you can go watch the videos up here of my Highline Trail hike and different things. I didn't hike the entire trail because it's a pretty long trail. My main thing was to get across without breaking my neck or killing myself and do a little hike and come back. And that's what I did, and it turned out it wasn't that bad at all. I was a little, on the way back, of course, the people going over on the inside, you're close to the wall, and if you needed to hold a cable or something for some reason, you could hold it. Coming back, I said, well, I got to go around those people, but it turned out it was no problem. It's one of those things where we have our fears and we overcome them, and that's what I did. And so, great time at Glacier. I missed a lot of stuff. I want to go back. Then I drove through Yellowstone. I'd been to Yellowstone the summer before, so I just drove through Yellowstone. Bear ran across the road in front of me. Got some pretty good video of him. Was able to pull off and get some video of him, and just a couple waterfalls and stuff because I wanted to get to the Grand Tetons. Grand Tetons, I checked out. It said the place to go see a moose. I'd never seen a moose. Well, I get to this place, and I'll be doggone, there's a moose in like a pond down there. She stayed in the water for about 30 minutes. Just stayed out there watching her, ducking her head. I didn't know moose did that. She just stayed in the water, put her head under the water. 2 baby moose on down a couple hundred yards. A lot of elk were in the area, a lot of elk, and but there's probably a hill about 30 yards, and I was from the pond that she was at up, and so I'm standing there taking a picture, and I notice that she's coming up out of the water, and she comes up, and she just looks at me. And I'm looking at her with the video going, and then she took like 2 steps, and I said, time for Mike to move. She's coming up this hill, and those things are huge, and they're fast. Well, so I walk away, and I hear all of this noise, and there were a group of people there, and I turn around, and this gigantic female moose is like 15 yards. Now, she's not coming towards me or anything. Actually, she's veering off. But I got my video of her, and she went into the woods and took video of her going to the woods, and then went down and took a picture of the baby moose. Finally, they had some park rangers come in, and they kind of closed the area off, moved people away because people were like between her and the babies, and that's not very smart. It started pouring down, raining, as a matter of fact, and I moved on from there. I drove pretty much all night long, and I went to Craters of the Moon. I had heard about this place. It's a national monument, not a national park. I got videos up about that. Unbelievable, the scenery there. From there, I went on to Moab and Arches National Park. Unbelievable scenery. I got videos of all of this up. Bryce Canyon, I went to Bryce Canyon. I went to Zion National Park. It's just unbelievable pictures and videos I got, and I want to go back and spend more time at some of these places. One in particular that I want to go back to is Mesa Verde. Man, I had never heard of this place, and I was going to go to like Canyonland or somewhere. No, I was going in Colorado to where they got the big sand dunes, and I changed that and I went to Mesa Verde. I had to backtrack a little bit, but wow, that's where they have the cliff dwellings. If you haven't read about that, you've never thought about going to this place, Mesa Verde National Park, those cliff dwellings are unbelievable, and I will be going back to that, I can assure you, here in the next year or two. Then I went all the way back to California to Lake Tahoe, or to Nevada to Lake Tahoe to my daughters, and stayed there for Christmas, and finished up the year out there. I went to my daughters in California, then we drove to Lake Tahoe, and I spent 2 weeks in Lake Tahoe, ended 2024 there, and 2025 started with me taking a flight up to Seattle and then taking the Empire Builder back from Seattle to Chicago, because I wanted to go through Glacier National Park during the daylight. When you take the route from Chicago to Seattle, well, it's dark. It's like midnight when you go through Glacier. So I have unbelievable beautiful videos and stuff that I took from the train, but that's in 2025. I guess that'll be in the recap next year, but you can go to my playlist and see the video that I made of Glacier National Park from the Amtrak going through there. So a lot of traveling, great year. I've already been planning 2025. I've got to finalize some plans. Vietnam is on there for a trip, maybe Thailand, tie that onto the trip. And some more travels within the U.S. and some hikes. Normally by this time, like last year, I was already hiking and stuff, but I've been doing some walking, but it's just been brutally cold, to be honest with you. And today's what, January the 25th or 26th as I do this, 26th as I make this video. But please, if you got something from this, hopefully you did. Hopefully it'll help you think of some places you want to go, see some of the national parks. Give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. I got tons of more videos and stuff coming, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.